By President Donald Trump. It is sort of like a State of the Union, but not really. Happy to have you here with us. I'm Rachel Maddow. I'm joined here in the studio by Nicole Wallace and Lawrence O'Donnell and Chris Hayes and Simone Sanders Townsend. Good to be with all of you. In just a few minutes, we're going to start seeing members of Congress and their guests entering the House chamber. In about a half an hour-ish, the president himself should start making his way from the White House over to the U.S. Capitol by limousine. Then we will see the whole rigmarole unfold down that center aisle at the House chamber. The senators will all arrive at the House side. They will enter along with the vice president, who, of course, is also president of the Senate. We'll see the diplomatic corps brought in, and we'll all wonder, who are all those people? I recognize some of them. The Samoa guy. Oh, yeah. Then at least some members of the Supreme Court will be there. There's always a little suspense as to who has chosen to attend from the court and who has not. Sometimes retired Justice Stephen Breyer comes along, too, like a +1, a spare. That's always exciting. Members of the military Joint Chiefs of Staff will be there as well, though President Trump just inexplicably fired the Joint Chiefs chairman, so that'll be difficult. The cabinet will then be announced, and then finally the president will make his entrance, and we will see Republicans crowd in on him on both sides of the aisle, and eventually he will wade through it all and up to the podium. One new addition this year, the president's top campaign donor is going to be present, apparently, presumably not just in his capacity as the man who financed Donald Trump's return to the presidency with by far the largest campaign donations in American history. Presumably he's also there not just in that capacity, but also in his capacity as the chainsaw-wielding austerity czar, who has been mysteriously empowered by Trump to carry out legally dubious firings of thousands of government employees and the attempted shutdown of whole government agencies. Mr. Musk has recently set his sights on Social Security, publicly calling it a Ponzi scheme, describing it as riddled with waste and fraud, essentially calling Social Security a criminal enterprise and suggesting that it is his next target. No word on whether the president's donor will join him on the dais. Maybe they'll just squeeze him in next to J.D. Vance and Mike Johnson. Third seat up there. We shall see. Now, as I mentioned, this is technically not a State of the Union address, even though it looks and acts exactly like one. The speech a president gives in the first year of a presidential term is like a knockoff, off-brand State of the Union. It's just a few weeks after the president has been sworn in, so they don't call it a State of the Union. They just call it a joint address to Congress. That said, sometimes it's the most interesting one because it is a first-year thing, and that makes this first-year address to Congress, at least generally speaking, an opportunity for a new president to lay out his vision for his term. He's got the inaugural and then this. We don't know whether or not Trump will follow that sort of historical stricture or not. A senior administration official tells NBC News that the theme for tonight's address is, quote, the renewal of the American dream. That said, Donald Trump will take to the rostrum tonight, having just launched a full-scale trade war on our closest trading partners and neighboring countries, sending U.S. financial markets off a cliff and raising prices on food, cars, and all sorts of consumer goods, essentially instantly. Chris Hayes is going to have more on that in just a moment. We're going to be talking in depth about that with our colleague Stephanie Ruhle later on this hour. We're also going to be joined shortly by NBC News correspondent Jacob Soboroff, who's going to be talking with some federal workers who are among those who were just indiscriminately fired by Donald Trump as part of this slash-and-burn assault on the federal government. Jacob is going to be watching the speech tonight with these fired federal workers. He's going to be getting their response to what they hear from the president. That should be really interesting. Meanwhile, the Trump administration, in just these first 6 weeks, has also jettisoned more than 80 years of American foreign policy, specifically the part that led to the whole leader of the free world nickname. Trump takes the podium tonight, having just stopped U.S. military aid to our purported ally in Ukraine as they continue to try to fight off Russia's unprovoked invasion. Trump has ordered an end to U.S. sanctions on Russia. He has ordered U.S. Cyber Command to stand down its operations to protect us from Russia. He has told the Justice Department to stop enforcing the law against unregistered foreign agents. He has removed the Homeland Security and FBI units that counter foreign interference in U.S. politics and elections. He has even told Russia it can reopen its embassy and consulates here, and has said he is looking forward to a summit soon with Russia's dictator. The restoration of the American dream. The Democratic response to Trump's speech tonight will be delivered by Senator Alyssa Slotkin. She is a former CIA officer. She won her Senate seat in Michigan last year, even as her state also voted for Trump for president. Senator Slotkin will deliver her rebuttal to tonight's address from a town in Michigan that voted both for her for Senate and for Trump for president. Now, I got to tell you, we don't know exactly when that Democratic response will be. It'll be after Trump speaks, but exactly when? Nobody knows. And I got to give you a fair warning. Of the 6 longest State of the Union addresses in U.S. history, Donald Trump is the person who delivered 3 of them. And they tend to just get longer and longer. And yeah, so settle in. It's going to be a night. But we will be with you here for the duration. And now, Chris, over to you. I know you've been looking at the tariff situation imposed last night at midnight. What happened in the markets today, this sort of economic chasm we appear to be throwing ourselves into deliberately.
Yeah, gosh, why is sort of the question that hovers over all this. And the thing about America is that it's a really, really big country, about 340 million. And for all of the chaos and the destruction that Rachel was just going through, the frontal attack on the democratic order that we've seen over the first 6 weeks, because the country is so big, so large, and really so affluent in relative terms, I don't think a lot of what Donald Trump has done really has impacted most of those 340 million people, at least at the personal level. That can all quickly change. Because the president just really and truly inexplicably launched a disastrous trade war on 2 of our closest neighbors, slapping 25% tariffs on imports from Canada and Mexico. Now, who knows if he will follow through long term? For now, it's quite real. The markets certainly recognize this disaster, which is why they fell by huge amounts the second day in a row. You see, Wall Street didn't actually believe Donald Trump would intentionally load a gun and just shoot the U.S. economy in the foot. But I gotta say, we all had plenty of warning this was coming.
We're going to have 10 to 20% tariffs on foreign countries that have been ripping us off for years. We're going to put on from 50 to 200% tariffs. 150 or 200% tariff. I will impose whatever tariffs are required, 100%, 200%. 1,000%.
Okay, so you can say a lot of things about the guy. You can't say he didn't warn you. We're at 25% for now. Donald Trump promised he would bring prices down on day 1. He very clearly didn't. Instead, he just made lots of products more expensive, from whiskey to car parts. So Trump's allies have changed their messaging.
Yes, there's going to be, as the president said on the campaign trail, there may well be short-term price movements, but in the long term, it's going to be completely different.
Wait a second. Did he really run on short-term price movements? I was there. I covered the campaign. I don't think that was the slogan. Of course, our allies, I mean, literally, and I mean this in a non-metaphorical sense, our closest allies, the physical sense, right, the people we border, also our largest trading partners for the same reason, are now retaliating in this, again, inexplicable budding trade war. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum says she will hit the U.S. with retaliatory tariffs on Sunday if Trump hasn't backed down by then, which we'll see. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau already put his into place. And I don't know if you saw this earlier today, but he came out and addressed Americans in the terms we usually hear American presidents using when they talk to the subjects of a foreign dictatorship.
We don't want this. We want to work with you as a friend and ally. And we don't want to see you hurt either. But your government has chosen to do this to you.
Back at home, we're already seeing headlines like this from the Wall Street Journal. Tariff war risks sinking world into new Great Depression, International Chamber of Commerce warns. The idea being, as goes America's economy, so goes the world, and trade wars tend to kind of proliferate, emanate out, get worse. Now, I got to say, I think and certainly hope that a new Great Depression isn't that likely. The American economy is big and pretty sturdy, but a recession certainly seems plausible, not just here, but globally. Because Donald Trump has created what looks to all the world like an intentional, sustained project to tank the U.S. economy. If the Americans who have not yet seen the impacts of this destructive presidency firsthand want a preview of what is coming, they should probably listen to some of the folks who have been fired by Elon Musk and his so-called efficiency project to get a sneak peek. My colleague Simone Sanders Townsend is standing by with a guest for whom that is a very local issue.
Thanks so much, Chris. Joining us now is Maryland Democratic Congressman Jamie Raskin, whose guest tonight for the speech is one of the federal workers who was recently fired. Congressman Raskin, can you just tell us about your plan for watching this speech? Tell us about your guest. And let's just be frank, we have heard from a lot of people across the country. I've been talking to a lot of Democratic lawmakers, and I know Democrats want the story not to be them tonight. They want it to be the American people. But there are folks out there that say you all should be fighting a little harder.
Well, we're fighting hard, and a number of us have brought with us to the speech tonight people who've been fired from their jobs for no reason at all on a completely arbitrary basis. My guest is Dr. Lauren McGee, who is a juvenile cancer researcher, the leader of a unit at NIH, who was fired in the so-called Valentine's Day massacre by Elon Musk and his subordinates. And her unit has actually been involved in some pioneering medical research and has saved lives. And she just got sacked. Why? Because she was on probation. And probation sounds like something bad, but it means she actually had been promoted to a higher position, to being the lead biologist on this team. But she got fired by somebody she never met, she never heard of. She has nothing but superior and excellent evaluations in all of her work. And now that medical research is going to be basically down the drain unless the college intern, the person who just got out of college in her unit, is able to take over as the lead biologist. But we're hearing that story across the federal government now. Food and drug safety inspectors at the Department of Agriculture, at the Food and Drug Administration. We're hearing it from people at the Agency for International Development, where people are literally at the point of starvation in foreign countries, and we've got millions of tons of American food sitting on the ground because of what DOGE has done. Air traffic controllers, nuclear safety inspectors, you name it. So, look, if Vladimir Putin himself had set out to disarm and disable the U.S. government, he could not have come up with a better plan than what Donald Trump and Elon Musk are doing.
I think my colleague Chris Hayes has a question for you, Congressman.
Oh, I wanted to ask, Congressman, do you worry in bringing this guest that you're going to alienate the many Americans who are pro-juvenile cancer?
Yeah, well, you know, Dr. McGee was showing me pictures with people whose lives were saved by the kind of research that she's done. Now, she happens to work on a relatively rare form of cancer, but NIH is in the forefront of multiple sclerosis and cystic fibrosis, lung cancer, colon cancer, heart disease, and I hope they're working on malignant narcissistic personality disorder, too, because we know what a danger that is to the American people.
Congressman, Maryland is home to one of the largest concentration of federal workers in the country. The federal government is also the largest employer in this country. Your governor, Wes Moore, has talked about making resources available to people who have been fired. But one of your colleagues just today introduced legislation in the House, Congresswoman McIver, to get these people their jobs back. What can you tell us about these efforts, and do you think the White House is really going to work with y'all? Because let's just be honest here. It does not seem like this is a White House who wants to do business with Democrats, even if it helps the American people.
Well, they are dismantling federal agencies like NIH, like NOAA and the National Weather Service, like the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which they have no authority to take down. These were created by Congress, and if anybody's going to take them down, Congress will. But of course, they're not bringing bills to Congress because they know they could never pass. There's no way that they would be able to get a majority in Congress to take down the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which has saved the American people $31 billion in, bank overdraft charges and in credit card late fees. They would never be able to take down NOAA with all of the critical work it does on climate change and on seafood safety and on the weather and predicting hurricanes and so on. They could never do it that way, so they're doing it according to some monarchical game plan that Elon Musk has as part of his Silicon Valley theory of how we're in a moment of regime change and we're moving from constitutional democracy to techno-monarchy. And the American people need to understand these people are serious, so we have to be out fighting them every single day in every single way to turn it around. But the good news is that with their terrible moves on the economy, with their stupid trade war, with the collapsing stock market, millions and millions of Americans are coming over to the side of democracy and freedom. And it is going to be the vast majority of us who defeat Elon Musk and Donald Trump.
Duck Walk by Ariel Williams. Henrietta Wilkins rushes to church one Sunday morning, accidentally leaving her gate open. Her duck, Duckweisha, seizes the chance to take her 5 ducklings to the local pond. Along the way, the ducklings fall into a manhole, causing a town-wide rescue effort. After a frantic search, Duckweisha finds her ducklings safely swimming in the pond, and the heartwarming story makes local news. Meanwhile, Henrietta realizes her mistake and panics, but the firemen reunite her with Duckweisha and her ducklings, bringing a happy ending to their adventure.
Get your digital copy today at lulubooks.com and experience the adventure in EPUB or PDF format. Make sure you have a compatible reader to dive into this unforgettable journey. Don't miss out, unlock the secrets, and let the story begin.
Bella the Dog from Springfield, A Tale of Truth and Transformation. In the small, charming town of Springfield, Ohio, lived a regal standard poodle named Bella. Bella belonged to Mrs. Von Thursenberg, a well-known figure in the community, always polished, conservative in manner, but a lifelong Democrat. For years, she hosted elegant soirees, engaging in local politics, and treating her home like a kingdom. Bella had grown accustomed to a life of luxury, complete with fancy collars, custom bow ties, and an endless supply of treats from those who adored her. Recently, however, things had changed. Mrs. Von Thursenberg had been watching a lot of Fox News, and it seemed to have swayed her thinking.
Get your digital copy today at lulubooks.com and experience the adventure in EPUB or PDF format. Make sure you have a compatible reader to dive into this unforgettable journey. Don't miss out, unlock the secrets, and let the story begin.
The Park of Secrets.
In the year 2060, near the heart of Florida, just a stone's throw from Disney World, stood a theme park unlike any other, a place known as the House of Secrets. It was a magical park, much like a state fair, filled with towering rides, carnival games, and parades that drew people from all over the world. But among the grand Ferris wheel and the colorful day parade, there was one attraction that outshined them all, the Parade Princess, a mesmerizing mermaid named Kenya. Kenya was a sight to behold. At 22 years old, fresh out of college, she had the kind of beauty that drew people to her like moths to a flame. Her brown skin glowed under the park lights, her hair a stunning mix of purple and pink that cascaded over her shoulders. Little pink hearts adorned her cheeks, and a ribbon of color stretched across her nose. But it wasn't just her beauty that made her special.
Get your digital copy today at lulubooks.com and experience the adventure in EPUB or PDF format. Make sure you have a compatible reader to dive into this unforgettable journey. Don't miss out, unlock the secrets, and let the story begin.
A Dying Planet, The Last Harvest.
In the year 2060, Earth is a shadow of its former self, choked by pollution, endless concrete, and abandoned by nature. Only a small fishing village by the sea has managed to preserve the planet's last untouched forest. In this dying world, June and Win, 2 young girls and the last children in their village, cling to the remnants of hope and innocence. Win roams the forest, collecting the season's last harvest, while June sings songs that echo with a haunting beauty through the village.
Get your digital copy today at lulubooks.com and experience the adventure in EPUB or PDF format. Make sure you have a compatible reader to dive into this unforgettable journey. Don't miss out, unlock the secrets, and let the story begin.